The iPhone X came out way back in 2017, and it was a huge jump forward in terms of smartphone design, but also camera technology. Now, 4 years later, we have the 13 Pro, and I've been curious, how far have we come? How much better are these cameras? Let's check it out. Let's first start outside with plenty of light. You might be surprised to find that both the wide and telephoto cameras have almost identical image quality. These images are zoomed into 300%, and I'm not sure I can tell any difference at all. Moving on to video in bright environments, you'll notice that the image quality and dynamic range seems to be extremely similar again. Even at 120 frames per second, both of these cameras look almost identical. As I'm walking with the wide camera, you'll notice that the 13 Pro is doing an amazing job of stabilizing the footage. If you want steady footage, you really need a gimbal with the iPhone X, whereas the 13 Pro can be used handheld while walking. The telephoto camera on the 13 Pro is a 3x optical zoom, whereas it's only a 2x optical zoom on the 10. But again, if we have plenty of light, the image quality looks very similar. So right now, things are not looking great for the 13 Pro, but hold on, we have more tests. Let's check out the ISO performance. In the studio, I shot video through the entire ISO range, and the difference between these cameras is massive. On the wide camera, it appears that the 13 Pro has 3 stops better ISO performance than the 10. When we look at the telephoto cameras, the difference is even more evident. Of course, if you were shooting exclusively outside in bright sun, you might not be able to tell a difference, but shooting indoors or shooting in low light will make a massive difference if you're shooting with the newer cameras. Speaking of huge differences, check out the front-facing cameras. This is a selfie camera test here. Huge improvement. I'm looking at the sky completely blown out in the iPhone X, and tons of dynamic range in the 13. Wow, I was not expecting that. Take a listen to the audio. Does it sound any better on one or the other? It is a little windy out here. I would imagine the audio doesn't sound great. Man, I am shocked by how much better this front-facing camera is. Let's take a photo. There may not be a huge difference when it comes to audio when filming with the front-facing camera, but listen to the audio difference when you're filming with the main cameras. All right, let's do a little audio test here. I am recording on the iPhone X. How do I sound? All right, it's time for a little audio test. I'm on the iPhone 13 Pro. How do I sound? The new microphone on the back of the 13 Pro is incredible. And did you notice how much cleaner the footage was out of the 13 Pro? This is a real world filming environment. I'm shooting right in front of my computer, something that I do all the time. Notice how much better this footage looks. Now, my favorite photography feature that Apple has implemented by far is portrait mode, where it cuts your subject out and blurs the background. It makes it look like you had taken your image with a professional camera, and the 13 Pro now does an even better job of cutting out your subject, making it look even more convincing. But more importantly than that, the iPhone X limited portrait mode to the telephoto lens only. But now on the 13 Pro, portrait mode works with the telephoto lens, the wide lens, or the front-facing lens. The 13 Pro also adds cinematic mode, which is basically portrait mode, but for video. So if you want that shallow depth of field look while you're shooting video, you have that option as well. So the cameras on the 13 Pro are probably looking like a pretty massive upgrade at this point, but I haven't even mentioned the third camera that exists on the 13 Pro that doesn't exist on the 10, and that's the ultra wide camera. And this year is the first year that Apple has introduced autofocus on this camera and the ability to focus down to 2 centimeters. So if you want to shoot macro photography with your phone, you can. The bottom line is that in the brightest environments, you might not really be able to see a difference between these cameras, but when you're shooting in real world environments, the difference between these cameras is massive. The 13 Pro is a gigantic upgrade with better stabilization, ISO performance, audio, front-facing camera, and software upgrades like cinematic mode and night mode. If you're still rocking the iPhone X and you're wondering if it's worth the upgrade and if you'll really notice the difference between the cameras, it's time to upgrade.